what makes this chilling is who's going to be next, because the Secretary of Defense designate says that women shouldn't be in the military, certainly not in combat roles. So will that be the next purge after this? And then who's after that? This is something that will hit morale hard in the military, whether you're trans or not. This kind of purge isn't done in the U.S. It's not done in the U.S. military. And this is going to have a tremendous impact on the fighting capability of the military.
Transgender troops may be kicked en masse out of the American military. Donald Trump is planning an executive order which could force 15,000 trans people out of their posts. And the Times reports the order could come in as early as the first day Donald Trump sets foot in the White House on the 20th of January. We can talk to Jim Townsend, who's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense in Washington. Hello to you, Jim. Welcome back to the program.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Jim, tell me, this policy of discharging maybe 15,000 service personnel who are identified as trans, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess it's not a surprise in that that's what Putin has been talking about on the campaign that Trump has been talking about on the campaign trail. And so this is something that I'm surprised that we're hearing it actually now. This is something that I thought we might see once he was inaugurated down the road. But he sounds like he's going to do it on the first day, and he can do it on the first day with an executive order, as you laid out.
Yeah.
This is something that is chilling for the military.
So what do you say then to the argument that the presence of these trans personnel impairs the effectiveness or the fighting efficiency of the American military?
That's absolutely wrong. Just as wrong as to say people of color or women cannot be in combat or in the military because there's something about their gender or whatever it might be that impacts their ability to complete what the military wants them to do, what the goal is of that military operation. I have worked with the military for years, and I know that I've worked with trans people. I've worked certainly with women and people of color, African Americans, and they're top notch. So that is an absolute lie. That is not true, that there's something about these people that make them any less capable of being in the military as someone who's not trans.
All right, so it is also part of the argument of those who say this is a good idea, people like J.D. Vance, the soon-to-be vice president, that there's a need to attend to the medical needs of trans service personnel. What do you say to that?
Well, I think they're looking for excuses. They're trying to appear rational in a decision like this. They're trying to say that there's some really good reasons why we have to do this. Well, that's just wrong. There is not some long line waiting for some type of surgery in a military hospital somewhere. That's just not true. I am certain that the military is going to be able to take care of whatever the issue might be for whatever soldier has problems and has to go see the military. But this is not something that is realistic. This is not something that's practical. This is something that is made up as an excuse to purge part of the U.S. military. And what makes this chilling is who's going to be next, because the Secretary of Defense designate says that women shouldn't be in the military, certainly not in combat roles. So will that be the next purge after this? And then who's after that? This is something that will hit morale hard in the military, whether you're trans or not. This kind of purge isn't done in the U.S. It's not done in the U.S. military. And this is going to have a tremendous impact on the fighting capability of the military.
Right. I mean, you dismiss this policy very, very flatly. It is the case, isn't it, that the American military does have in some parts, I think not the U.S. Marines, but other parts of the military, something of a recruitment problem. And taking out up to 15,000 as personnel, that should surely cause a bit of a problem.
Well, you're exactly right. This doesn't help recruiting in the military. And not only that, it's not just impacting recruiting of a trans person, but others as well who might think that they could be next. As I said, maybe an African American or an Asian American or someone else who feels that they're in the crosshairs of the Trump administration, that for those reasons they don't want to join the military. They feel they'll just lose their job. That's the wrong way to approach recruiting, is to start turning people away and judging people. So what I have to ask the administration is, what's your checklist of the right person that should be in the military? Is it an Aryan race? Is it a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant? Just what is it that is acceptable to this administration? This is really outrageous, and it is really something that not just the military, but the civil service, the foreign service, they should be concerned about too.
Well, I can hear the indignation and outrage in your voice, Jim, as you're talking to me now. Talking about who could be kicked out next, well, it could be some very high-ranking officers indeed, because there's also a policy, isn't there, to set up what are called warrior boards, who would screen the highest ranks in the Army, Air Force, the Marines, and the Navy to check on their loyalty to American values, and values as defined by the Trump administration.
That's exactly right. It is not just a demographic that they're going after, but they seem to be wanting to settle scores in their mind, scores that from the evacuation of Kabul or whatever else that the administration seems to have trouble with in terms of past military operations. And again, they want to do this purge. And frankly, it has already started. The American general who led the evacuation of Kabul managed that horrible tragedy and managed to save a lot of people. His promotion has been held up in the Congress by a representative who wants to freeze it in place until the new administration and the new Congress gets in after January. So what this guy has done is he's grabbed someone who was flown in to rescue the situation in Kabul that was deteriorating, which he did. And this representative wants to hold this guy back from being promoted to a 4-star general. This is absolutely unacceptable. This guy is a hero. He's not someone that should be held back from being promoted. So this idea of purging, this idea of having a panel, has already started, at least in the Congress, by this congressman holding this package of approval for this promotion, holding it, freezing it until a new Congress comes into place. This is just another outrage on top of outrages that we've heard about today.
Okay, now Pete Hegseth is the man that's been named by Donald Trump to be his choice of the next Secretary of Defense. That is, if he's approved by Congress, by the Senate.
Right.
And that can't be called certain at this point. However, at the moment, he is the nominee. He's very strong on this question of appointments on the basis of equality, of diversity, and inclusion, and he wants to go after those officers who have made appointments on the basis of DEI, as it's called. Can it be said at all with any merit that the DEI process, appointments on for the sake of justice and equity, have overridden considerations of merit?
Well, first of all, I think it needs to be said that in terms of DEI, the military didn't dream up these DEI policies, and they were part of the Biden administration's, the civil part of the Biden administration. That's the Secretary of Defense and his civilian staff went to the military and said, this is part of what the administration wants to do. We feel needs to be social justice and understanding, even among the military, of this aspect of our American society. Therefore, we want you to develop and implement into the military services these DEI programs. So they were acting at the behest of the commander-in-chief and the Secretary of Defense and the civilians. And so the idea that you would get a military officer who put that program into his service or her service and have them then hauled before a board for something that they were doing under orders is ridiculous, number one. Number two, your point is an important point, is that there needs to be merit, absolutely. And I think if the DEI has gone too far over on one side, it should be rolled back into a middle place where merit is in there as well. It shouldn't be just DEI. I haven't seen, though, that only DEI is being used to promote people. So I think we've got to understand better, and the administration needs to understand better, just how DEI or the whole wokeism, how that has manifested itself into the U.S. military. There's a lot of rumor out there, and there's a lot of misunderstanding on what this is. I would hope that the administration, before it acted, would get a gauge of exactly what's going on in the military, correct things if there's too much on one side. But I think they need to examine the problem first before taking these kinds of actions.
Okay.